Okay, so today is Tuesday, October 27th. Tuesday, October 27th. So let's go ahead and get into the PowerPoint. So we're going to do the same thing that we did yesterday. Oh, that's the wrong one in here. I have the protist one in here. I'll have to change that. So we're on fungi. Please stop making noises. So we're on fungi. I'm going to change that here right after I pause the video. So we're on lesson 2.3.2. Move my head so I can get this in presentation form. So lesson 2.3.2. So get your notes out. Lesson 2.3.2. So we are going through the different types of fungi today. So we're going to elaborate on that today. So first, you're going to read pages 87 to 89. So same thing as yesterday. As your warm-up, you're going to be, so first 20 minutes of class, you're going to be reading that lesson, so pages 87 to 89. And then once you're done with that, you're going to get started on your notes. So you're familiar with the content and you know what's going on. So what do you include? Just a reminder, you always include the vocabulary words. So how many vocab words are in there? Three. So include those 3 vocab terms. You have the objectives. So what's the first objective in there? What's the first? Yep. So recall the basic forms of fungi. And then the second objective is what, Jaden? What's the second objective? The second objective. So it's on page 87. Evan, what's the second objective? So page 87. Caleb, what's the second objective? Page 87. Abby, what is the second objective? Yes, so examine the reproductive structure of mushrooms. We went over that a little bit yesterday with how fungi and mushrooms reproduce. I'll give you a hint, it starts with the spore.
So we just write how it reproduces.
Yep. So
it's just weird.
You got, yeah, it's worded weird. So you guys have 20 minutes. So 20 minutes. So we'll come back here in 20 minutes and I will resume the video. So those of you who are online, you are also doing this for 20 minutes.
Can we say hi to everyone?
Yeah. Go ahead to say hi to everyone at home.
Hi.
Hi, people.
Alan, Ian.
Hi, people.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people gone, and we have 7 people here. Almost half the class.
No.
All right.
I have one for them.
So we didn't need the whole 20 minutes, so we're going to get started here. I'm going to get the barking going here. Oh. Come on, barking.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, let's get started. Let's get out of that. There we go. Okay, so I have a few discussion questions for you here. So these are things that you will need to add to your notes because you probably didn't get them added in there. So yes, so how do yeast reproduce differently than a multicellular fungi? So that kind of gives it away right there. So how does a yeast cell reproduce differently than something that is a multicellular fungi? Anyone? Bueller? No? No one's got, Jaden, what do you got? Through budding, yep. So a yeast cell is going to go through what is called budding, which we've talked about a few times in the last couple weeks. So that's where you have so you have your normal cell, and then it's going to grow a tiny little mass. So it's not going through binary fission like Caleb said. So with multicellular fungi, it goes through binary fission. Yeast cell, it just has little tiny chains just keep growing off of each other. So I have a little video clip of someone looking under a microscope at a yeast cell, and then over time they have it,
Are you
they,
gonna show us that?
yep, right after this. So they have it, the chain of the yeast cell just budding off and getting larger and larger. So I'm about to show you that here once you get this written down. So how do yeast produce, reproduce differently? By budding. Okay, so that's what I have here next for you. I am recording, right? Yeah, okay. So here's, can you guys identify in this image here any of the, can you identify any of the little budding going on? So yeah, come on up, Galen, get your mask on. Where do you see some of the budding going on? This little guy, yep. Yep, so you can especially tell over there too. There's a little guys popping off of those. It's a really, yep. So anything that has just a little bit of a, and I put an arrow on there for people who didn't get to see us pointing at those. So there's a few of them that are just coming off of the main cell. So it's just a tiny little mass that grows off of the cell. And then it'll start, it'll be a chain reaction. You'll just have more and more budding off.
Is that what happened to the yeast?
Yep, yep, that's what happened with our starter. Yes, this is under a microscope, yep. And I'm gonna, in this video right here, that's what I'm gonna be showing you right now. Yeah. I'm not showing the whole video, I have it, just a clip. There's a bunch of them.
Is this sped up or just?
A little bit. But it goes pretty fast.
And then they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm. And then it just keeps expanding.
What happens to the dead one?
So usually if one dies, the entire chain will die. But as long as it's in a warm area, as long as it's not super cold, it will keep expanding and growing like this. And eventually you will see, you'll be able to see this in person. You won't have to look through a microscope because over time it just keeps on growing and growing, as you can tell. Yeah.
Oh.
You're missing our microscope. Yeah. No. So here's just one zoomed in. William, I'm going to show you some of the budding going on here.
It started out like a really
So they started out really small, and then over time, it just, the budding just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And this is a yeast.
Forward mode? It's fast?
By a little bit, yes. Yep. But not a lot. You actually can see the budding happening when you look under a microscope.
Well, look at all the way down there.
They grow really fast. Yeah, this is sped up a little bit. Okay, so that's all I wanted to show you guys for this. Now let's continue on here. Okay, last question for you guys. So what role do mushroom gills have? What role do mushroom gills have, Madeline?
Making babies.
I mean, in a sense, yes. The spores. Yes, in reproduction. Yep. So the gills, they, as Madeline said, making babies. They produce the spores and they let them go into the air so they can make more mushrooms. That's their way of making babies. Love it. All right. So if you don't have that part written down, get that written down because that's another. That'll probably be something that you could see on the final exam.
That's the one you can use. I actually drew the little thing.
Yeah. Yep. Good.
Don't look at why this is ripped off.
Okay, I won't. Okay. So the basic forms of fungi. So we are going to compare and contrast yeasts, molds, and mushrooms. So if you didn't get that, yeast, molds, and mushrooms, those are your three basic forms. Those are your three basic forms of fungi. So as William and Caleb pointed out, there are more types of fungi. These are just the three basic forms of classification. So let's compare and contrast each of them. What do yeast have that molds and mushrooms don't? What makes them special? What makes molds different? What makes mushrooms different from the others? Yeah.
Mold is just like that. They all have something similar, but they're all at least like some of them. Mushrooms.
Mold.
Some mold is
So
edible.
yep.
Yeast.
To a certain extent, some mold is edible, but for the most part, if you go
Actually,
licking mold like on the wall, that's not edible.
Coronavirus challenge.
But right, mold, we use mold to make cheese
a lot of it,
in a way, so yep.
a lot of it's meant for like drug use.
Coronavirus challenge.
Yeah, I've heard of that. So any other, so they're all edible. How are they different from each other? That's one of the things that you should have had in your notes there. Madeline, how are any of them different from each other? Because they all have something different.
Yeast is, aren't they, yeast is unicellular, aren't they all unicellular?
Yes.
Or just?
Yep, so that's the main thing from yeast. The yeast cell, it's unicellular. Molds, they are multicellular, and mushrooms, they are also multicellular. So the main difference with yeast is they are unicellular, meaning it's just one cell. Just one cell. And then as we saw in that little microscope picture, over time it grows and grows and grows. Jaden, do you need to go take a nap in the office? No? You gonna stay awake? Okay, because if you want to take a nap, you can go take a nap in the office. I'm fine with that. You good? Okay. Okay, difference with mold. What is mold? How is mold different from yeast and mushrooms? Yeah, Jaden. Yeah, it's fuzzy and shapeless. Yep. Yep. And then mushrooms, obviously, it's going to have that like mushroom cap. Good. You guys hit the nail right on the head. So yeast, they're unicellular, just like Madeline said. Mushrooms, they are going to have what's called a stalk. So that's the top part of the mushroom, or not the top. That is the let's call it the pole. And I'll draw it up on the board. So that is this part right here. That's your stalk. And then you have the cap that goes on top. So the cap is on top, and then you have the stalk on the bottom. And then there's what? Uh-huh. Yep. Did she? Nice. So that's one thing about mushrooms. Molds, like Jaden said, they're going to be fuzzy. They're going to be fuzzy and usually shapeless, meaning that it's going to look like a blob, and it has no definite shape. So it's not going to have the shape of, let's say, a mushroom. It's going to look totally different. And again, this is something that you could see on your final. On your final, I could say, yeast, they are shapeless and fuzzy fungi. Is this true or false? And you would say, false, Mr. Doomer. You're trying to lie to me. And no, I'm just testing your knowledge, guys. Come on. And then, like William was saying, you are all able to eat all of them in some way, and then they also, all three of them, they feed off of dead organisms. So that was the main one I'm looking for. So they all feed off of dead and living organisms. So that's where decomposing comes into play. Yeah.
A lot of people they use this stuff to make LSD and other things like that.
Yep. Yep, I know. Yep. Okay. Let's see. Okay, yeah, this is my last slide. My last slide here. So the steps of reproduction. The steps of reproduction. Okay. So first step is you send out the spores. The spores get sent out. So like Madeline said, they make babies. So from the gills, they send out the spores. They send out the spores, and the spores, they can float in the air, in our air particles. And then the spores, when they land somewhere, they are able to grow hyphae, which we learned yesterday is like the little, the hair-like structures. And then over time, the hyphae, they are going to grow into a bigger organism. Yeah, Evan.
So, what happens if you breathe in
Yeah.
like
You can breathe them in. It's not going to be poisonous to you because it's so
Also,
small.
like any grapes.
But that's why you don't want to eat like a mushroom, because there are a lot of spores in there, and if you get too much, then it can be poisonous to you. But just one little spore that's floating through the air, it's not going to hurt you.
Is that why when we were out hunting and stuff,
Mhm.
I touched the mushroom and my dad slapped it out of my hand? I was like, what was that for?
Yep. Because you can get a lot of like the spores on your hand. You can get a lot of some mushrooms. They are poisonous just by touch. So certain types of mushrooms, not all. If you just touch a mushroom, it's going to be poisonous to your skin.
That's why you really have to
You don't,
You're really messed
unless you really know what it is, because a lot of people around here in Oregon go
mushroom.
quote unquote hunting or mushroom picking. Yep. But you need to know what type of mushrooms you can actually go picking for, because some of them are poisonous.
The first one was
Yeah.
So if you don't want to touch mushrooms with a glove, wouldn't that not be poisonous to you?
Right, because there would be a covering on the outside of your hand. Yep. So wearing gloves, you could do that.
See, for what? No reason.
Oh, were you wearing gloves? Okay, so that was my last slide. So tomorrow we'll be doing lesson 2.3.3, and that'll be everything for Unit 2, Chapter 3, Unit 2, Chapter 3. And then after that, Thursday we will be having the lab. So if you're at home, you're not going to be able to do the lab. If you're here, you get to do the lab on Thursday. And then Friday is going to be our work day. And then Monday and Tuesday of next week, that's going to be study guide day. So study guide day, Monday and Tuesday of next week, and Wednesday of next week will be your final exam.
Thanks for
Okay.
the last slide.
Perfect. All right, so that's all I have for you guys. So let's go ahead.